Have you ever asked yourself how much money you would actually need to invest every single month if you wanted to stop working in just 10 years? Not in 30, not in 40, but in only 10 years. Most people hear a question like this and instantly think it's impossible, that it belongs more to fairy tales than to real life, or that they need millions sitting in the bank already. But what if I told you that the answer isn't hidden in some secret Wall Street formula, not locked away behind expensive financial advisors, but sitting right in front of you in plain math that anyone can understand? The question isn't whether it can be done. The real question is whether you're willing to face the actual number and the discipline it requires. Here's where the mystery begins, because the figure most people imagine is usually completely wrong. Some think you need to invest tens of thousands every month. Others think a couple hundred will do it. But the real answer depends on how money compounds, how inflation quietly steals your gains, and how consistent you can actually be when life gets messy. If you stay with me until the end, you'll know the exact monthly investment amount down to the last dollar that could let you walk away from your job in only 10 years. I'll reveal that exact figure later in this video. So right now, pause and take a guess in the comments. What do you think the number is? I'll respond to everyone who guesses right. Now let's begin. Before we dive into the calculations, let's understand why this entire idea feels so impossible to most people. For decades, the story we've been told is painfully simple. You work for 40 years, maybe 45 if you're unlucky. You save a little bit in your retirement account, probably not enough. And when you're finally too old and too tired to work anymore, you get to live on whatever scraps you manage to save. That story has been drilled into our heads so many times that it feels like the only path forward. But stop for a second and ask yourself, is it really the only way, or is it just the way that keeps you working the longest so someone else profits from your labour? Imagine for a moment that you make a decision today, not someday, not eventually, but right now, that you want to stop trading hours of your life for a paycheck. You sit down with a piece of paper and start writing. What do you actually spend every month? Rent or mortgage, food and groceries, transportation, healthcare, insurance, phone bill, internet. Maybe a few small luxuries here and there. Coffee, streaming services, the occasional dinner out. Let's say it all adds up to around $3,000 a month. That's $36,000 a year. Simple math so far. Now here's the key insight. If you could somehow build a financial system that generates that $3,000 every single month without you showing up to an office, without you answering emails, without you asking permission for vacation days, you would technically be retired. Not rich in the sense of private jets and yachts, but rich in the sense of time, freedom, and control over your own life. That's the real target we're aiming for. But how do you actually get there? That's where compounding enters the picture. Compounding is the force that makes money grow on its own. It's been explained 1,000 times with charts and graphs and fancy exponential curves. But let me give you a simpler picture. Imagine planting a tree. In the first year, it's small, fragile, barely visible. You water it every week, protect it from storms, and honestly, it feels like nothing is happening. In the second year, still small. Maybe you see one or two tiny fruits. You start to wonder if you're wasting your time. But if you keep watering, if you keep showing up, by year 5 something changes. The branches are spreading. The trunk is getting thicker. Suddenly you've got dozens of fruits hanging from strong branches. By year 10, you're sitting under a tree that's feeding you without any effort on your part. That's compounding. The early years feel painfully slow. Nothing seems to move. But the later years explode with growth. And that explosion only happens if you survive the quiet years. Most people quit after year 2 or 3. They see tiny results, assume it doesn't work, and walk away right before the magic starts. Those who push through the painful beginning are the ones who eventually wake up to find the tree is feeding them every single day. Now let's connect that back to your 10-year retirement goal. If you want to stop working in a decade, you don't have the luxury of waiting around for 30 or 40 years. You need to water that tree aggressively, plant as many seeds as possible. Make sure the soil is as rich as you can afford. In money terms, that means you'll need to invest more each month than most people are comfortable with. You'll need to choose the right investment vehicles. And you'll need to understand the brutal effects of inflation, taxes, and fees that nobody likes to talk about. Here's where most finance videos stop. They show you a neat little chart. Your money grows at 7% or maybe 10% per year. They tell you everything will be fine if you just stay the course. But that's not reality. Reality is inflation quietly eating your purchasing power every single year. Reality is taxes cutting into your returns. Reality is investment fees dragging you down month after month. If you invest $1,000 a month for 10 years and your portfolio grows at 7%, you might think you'll end up with about $175,000. That sounds exciting at first. But now adjust that number for 3% inflation every single year. Suddenly the real buying power of that money is closer to $135,000. What looked like a mountain is actually just a hill, and this is exactly why you can't look at investment numbers in isolation. You need to see the real return, the number that's left after inflation steals its cut, after taxes take their piece, after fees nibble away at the edges. That's the money you'll actually live on. The difference between advertised returns and real returns is what separates dreamers from people who actually retire early. Let me make this concrete with an example. Imagine you invest in a portfolio that delivers 8% returns per year. Sounds solid, right? But inflation averages 3%. Taxes take another 1%. Fees take 0.5%. Your real return isn't 8%. It's closer to 3.5%. Over 10 years, that tiny difference means tens of thousands of dollars less in your account. This is why so many people follow the plan for years, do everything they're told, and then realize they're coming up short when they finally check the numbers at the end. But don't lose hope, because while this might sound scary, it's also exactly why you're watching this video. If you can see clearly where most people are blind, you can play the game smarter. You can design a plan that outpaces inflation. You can structure your investments to minimize taxes, and you can keep more of your gains instead of bleeding money to hidden costs. So let's get into the real question. How much do you actually need to invest every single month to retire in 10 years? I'm going to reveal the exact number in just a few minutes, but first you need to understand the mechanics or the number won't make any sense. What I will say right now is this: the number is smaller than you fear, but bigger than you hope. It's not pocket change, but it's also not lottery winner money. It sits in that uncomfortable middle ground that forces you to make serious trade-offs, but also gives you a legitimate shot at freedom if you're willing to commit. Let's test a few different scenarios so you can see how the math actually works. Suppose you decide to play it extremely safe. You invest in high-yield savings accounts or government bonds that pay around 5% per year. After 10 years of putting in $1,500 every single month, you might end up with about $230,000 before adjusting for inflation. After inflation, maybe $175,000 in real purchasing power. That sounds like progress. And it is. But it's not nearly enough to retire unless your expenses are extremely low. The income you could safely generate from that amount would cover maybe your groceries and rent in a small city, but not a full life with healthcare, travel, or unexpected costs. You'd still be dependent on some kind of work, so the safe path doesn't get you there in 10 years. Now let's try something a bit more aggressive. Suppose instead you invest in real estate investment trusts, REITs. These typically yield somewhere between 4% and 6%, and the rents they collect usually rise with inflation over time. After 10 years of investing $1,500 a month, you could be sitting on a portfolio closer to $280,000 or even $300,000. That amount could generate around $1,200 to $1,500 per month in income, and that income tends to grow as rents increase. Still not luxurious living, but it starts to cover serious expenses. You're getting closer, but you're still not quite at full retirement if you need $3,000 a month. And then there are equities, broad stock market index funds. Historically, these have returned about 10% per year before inflation. After adjusting for inflation, that's closer to 7% in real terms. Now let's see what happens. If you invest $1,500 every month for 10 years, at a 7% real return, you could end up with over $260,000. That portfolio could safely generate somewhere around $850 to $1,000 per month using conservative withdrawal rates. Better than bonds, better than nothing, but still nowhere near the $3,000 monthly income you'd need for full financial independence. So here's where the truth starts to hurt. If you want to retire in 10 years, you're going to need to push a lot harder. The math is unforgiving. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care that $1,500 a month already feels like a huge sacrifice. The numbers are what they are. But here's the good news. The math is also completely honest. It will tell you exactly what you need to do. No tricks, no surprises, just cold, clear reality. Let's go back to our target. You need $3,000 a month in passive income. That's $36,000 per year. Now, financial experts generally recommend something called the 4% rule. The idea is simple. If you can live on 4% of your total portfolio each year, your money should last indefinitely because your investments keep growing even as you withdraw. So if you need $36,000 per year, divide that by 4% and you get $900,000. That's the total amount you need invested to generate your target income safely. $900,000 in 10 years. That sounds like a mountain, doesn't it? Completely out of reach for most people. But don't panic yet, because this is where monthly contributions and compound growth do the heavy lifting for you. Let's run the actual numbers. If you can consistently invest around $5,500 per month into a diversified portfolio that earns 7% after inflation, in 10 years, you'll cross that $900,000 mark. That's the clean, honest math. For most people, $5,500 a month sounds absolutely insane. Completely impossible. Out of the question. And that's exactly why most people dismiss the idea of retiring in 10 years. The moment they hear it. They hear the raw number, they feel crushed, and they never even try. But here's the part nobody tells you. There are ways to bring this number down. Ways to design a strategy that makes the impossible start to feel possible. One of the biggest levers you control is lifestyle. If you don't actually need $3,000 a month to be happy, but instead can live comfortably on $2,000 a month, the required portfolio drops from $900,000 to around $600,000. Suddenly, the monthly investment needed shrinks dramatically. You'd need closer to $3,700 per month at 7% returns. Still demanding, yes, but far less crushing than $5,500. And if you go even leaner, if you can genuinely live well on $1,500 a month, maybe you've moved somewhere affordable, maybe you've eliminated debt, maybe you've built a simpler life, then you only need about $450,000 saved. At that level, the monthly investment required drops closer to $2,700. Now we're in territory where many middle-income families could realistically play this game if they are willing to make sacrifices and stay disciplined. But there's another massive lever most people ignore completely. Income growth. If you lock yourself into thinking that your salary today is the only resource you'll ever have, then yes, these numbers feel absolutely crushing. But what if over the next 10 years you build new skills? What if you switch jobs and negotiate better pay? What if you start a side hustle that brings in an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month? What if you launch a YouTube channel and it starts generating real income? Suddenly, investing $3,000 or even $4,000 a month doesn't feel like a prison sentence. It feels like a choice you're making to buy back your freedom. And those income choices compound just as powerfully as the money itself. Now let's pause here because I promised you the exact figure, and it's time to deliver. If you want to retire in 10 years with a reasonable lifestyle, living on around $3,000 per month, you need to invest between $3,000 and $4,000 every single month, consistently, without fail, into a diversified portfolio, earning around 7% after inflation. That's the number. That's the truth most people never hear because they stop asking questions the moment it gets uncomfortable. It's not $200 a month. It's not even $1,000 a month. If you want a 10-year timeline, the price is significantly higher. But the reward is absolute freedom a decade from now, while most people are still grinding through another 20 or 30 years of work. And here's where the mystery turns into clarity. Because now you know the number, and knowing the number changes everything. You can design your life around it. You can cut expenses aggressively. You can find ways to increase your income. You can optimize your taxes. You can automate your investment system, so money moves before you even see it. You can see the target clearly instead of stumbling around in a fog, hoping things work out. But let me also say this, if $3,000 to $4,000 per month feels completely impossible right now, don't give up. Don't throw your hands in the air and walk away. Because even if you can only invest $1,000 or $1,500 a month, you're still planting seeds. Maybe you won't retire in exactly 10 years. Maybe it takes 15 years instead. But 15 years is still decades ahead of the traditional retirement path that keeps you working until you're 65 or 70. And the skills, the habits, and the financial clarity you build along the way will serve you no matter how long the journey takes. Here's another truth that nobody tells you when you're starting out. The first half of the journey feels like the hardest part. You're the one doing all the heavy lifting. Your savings rate drives everything. You look at your account balance and see relatively small numbers. You start to wonder if it's even worth the sacrifice. But then somewhere around year 6 or 7, something magical starts to happen. The portfolio itself begins generating income almost as large as your monthly contributions. Your money starts working as hard as you do. By year 10, if you've stayed consistent, the portfolio is doing more work than you are. That's when the snowball finally rolls downhill on its own. That's when your tree is producing fruit faster than you can eat it. And once you reach that point, the feeling is absolutely incredible. Think about what that actually means in practice. Imagine waking up one random Tuesday morning. You check your investment account over coffee and you see that your portfolio generated $4,000 that month while you were sleeping, working, spending time with family, doing whatever you wanted. That income appeared without you lifting a finger. That's the dream we're chasing. That's the prize worth fighting for. And it's not magic. It's not luck. It's math plus discipline, repeated over and over until the numbers finally tip in your favour. But let's go even deeper into the psychology here. Because raw numbers alone won't carry you through 10 years of sacrifice and discipline. The real secret is to build systems that make investing automatic. If you rely purely on willpower, you will fail. If you rely on motivation, you will fail. Willpower runs out, motivation fades. But if you set up automatic transfers from every paycheck straight into your investment accounts, if you configure your dividends to reinvest automatically, if you remove every bit of friction from the process, then you don't need willpower anymore. The system does the work for you. Automation is your single best friend on this journey because life will distract you. Markets will crash and scare you. Temptations will pull you towards spending. But automation doesn't blink. It doesn't panic. It doesn't suddenly decide to buy a new car instead of investing. It just executes month after month without emotion. And that robotic consistency is the difference between people who dream about early retirement and people who actually achieve it. Now imagine the feeling of walking away from a job you don't love. Imagine sitting across from your boss and calmly saying, "You're done." Not because you hate the work, not because you're burned out, though maybe you are, but simply because you don't need the paycheck anymore. Your investments cover your life. You're free. Imagine building your days around your passions, your family, your creativity, your health, not around someone else's schedule or demands. That's the prize waiting at the end of these 10 years of discipline. But you also need to understand something critical. Freedom has a cost. The cost is discipline today. The cost is delayed gratification. The cost is saying no to things right now so you can say yes to absolutely anything 10 years from now. Every dollar you spend on something you don't genuinely need isn't just a dollar gone. It's a brick removed from the foundation of your future freedom. And when you start seeing money through that lens, every single choice becomes crystal clear. You start asking yourself with every purchase, is this expense moving me closer to retirement in 10 years or pushing me further away? That simple question cuts through all the noise and reveals the truth. So let's put it all together one final time. To retire in 10 years, you will likely need to invest between $3,000 and $4,000 every single month, consistently, into assets that yield around 7% after inflation. If you can lower your monthly expenses, the required investment drops. If you can raise your income over time, hitting that monthly number becomes far more achievable. If you can do both, cut expenses and grow income simultaneously, the odds tilt heavily in your favour. That's the blueprint. That's the math. That's the honest truth. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The timeline might be negotiable, but the process itself is not. Whether it takes you 10 years, 12 years, or 15 years, the only way out is through relentless consistency. The only path to freedom is planting the seeds, watering the tree every single month, and waiting for the fruit to appear. Most people never even start. Most people who do start never continue past the first year or two, and only the rare few who continue long enough who survived the boring middle years, ever get to taste real financial freedom? Which category will you fall into? Here's one more option most people never consider. What if instead of sacrificing $3,000 to $4,000 from your current salary, you built a new income stream that generated that amount? Many successful YouTube channels earn $3,000 to $5,000 per month once they're established. Imagine funneling that entire income directly into investments without ever touching it. You're not sacrificing anything from your current lifestyle. You're building a parallel system that feeds your future while your present stays comfortable. If that idea interests you, I explain the entire strategy step by step in my free Telegram community. The link is in the description. No hidden costs, no paid courses, just the roadmap that's working for others right now. One final thing. 10 years from now, you'll look back at this moment. And the question won't be how much you invested every month. The question will be whether you invested at all, whether you took action or let another decade slip away. Subscribe to this channel for more strategies like this. Give this video a like if the math made sense, and let me know in the comments if you guessed the number correctly. I'll respond to everyone who got it right. I'll see you soon. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend entirely on your own decisions and actions.